Hey, it's Matt Pinfield. It's KLOS New and Approved. So happy to have Simon Le Bon of Duran Duran on the show. Simon, it's great to see you. You know, I've got to share a story with you that the very first time I ever interviewed you, and I was about 18 or 19. I brought a tape recorder to EMI America Records. And Rio wasn't out yet or was about to be released because I was in love with the first album and played you on my college radio show. I came there, and you and Nick Rhodes came into the offices. We were in this kind of almost empty room with a video player. They had a big tape. We watched Hungry Like the Wolf. You guys were still sunburned from Sri Lanka, believe it or not. So that's telling you how long ago I did my first interview with you guys. So it's been, many a year, and certainly love the band. And then I was telling John Taylor not that long ago, because, I talked to John, that I saw you guys at the Meadowbrook Ballroom. It was in Cedar Grove, New Jersey, for the Rio tour, and B-Movie opened up. But you guys were phenomenal. And I always told everybody, me and all my friends went up to that show, and the band was so great live. So I like to tell people the story about seeing you back that early. And then over the years when I was at MTV, I interviewed you, and it's been an incredible run. But I'm so happy to have you. Simon, first of all, I want to congratulate you on being nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I personally I predict you're going to get in, because I know everybody I know, including myself, is voting for you, and the fans are voting for you. How do you feel about the nomination for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Simon?
We are absolutely over the moon about it. I mean, it's one of those things, and it's like a lot of awards and sort of clubs, really, that if you're not in them, you kind of think, well, I don't really care about that. But as soon as you get nominated, it becomes very important to you. John and I inducted Roxy Music into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame a couple of years ago, and that was a big deal for us, and we really enjoyed that whole experience. To be invited ourselves it's magnificent, and I would urge everybody who likes Duran Duran and wants to see them in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to get your computer out, get a new email address, and vote multiple times, as I've told my entire family.
Yeah, you've got to do that. It's amazing that the documentary came out we saw on Showtime, and it was just so cool, Simon, to see you go back to like the church where you originally sang in a choir. Learning that background on you, for me, was very cool. Tell me what that experience was like, going back to that church and just seeing where you really started singing.
Well, it was more for me about going back and seeing my old choir master, Mr. Turvey, who was the guy who he taught me to read music. He taught me about harmony. He really was a very important part of my musical, not my singing. I mean, singing, obviously, but my actual musical development. He was probably the most important person in my musical development. You know how important melodies and harmonies are in Duran Duran songs. I mean, that's really where it comes from. And actually just spend time with him and listening to the old stuff and talking about where the band's going now was just amazing for me.
Yeah, it's great. And Simon, I gotta say, when the special editions of the first album and Rio came out, I think fans like myself, people that love the band, were amazed at how really good those demos sounded. I mean, eventually, working with Colin Thurston and the guys who produced, but the demos themselves were pretty self-realized. I mean, you guys, the songs were really already there. Can we talk about that? Like, can you tell me about the early process of when you guys first got together and started writing like that?
Well, I walked into a band which had a lot of pieces of music written, but no lyrics, and not many top lines either. And that's that was really my whole talent, really. So I came in with the melodies, and I came in with lyrics. And we wrote those songs pretty quickly from the beginning. I joined the band in May of 1981. Sorry, 1980 it was. And we had our first show in July of the same year. So that's 2.5 months after I joined the band. We put on our first show together at the Rum Runner on this tiny little stage surrounded by Miraflex and potted plants.
Was that Birmingham? Was that in your home area there?
Yeah, and that was the Rum Runner, the club where the band formed and really did and wrote the first 2 albums. You see, we actually had, by the time we'd finished the first album, we already had the second album written and ready to go.
That's amazing that Rio was already written at that time. Yeah. Talk to me about those early tours when you first came over to the States and you realized you guys were, I mean, people were starting to find out about you because at first, obviously, the big New Romantic thing was happening in the UK, but there was something that set you guys apart. What were those first couple of tours like when you came over? Because I think the first time wasn't very long, but how did you feel when you saw that you were building this really devoted audience in the States?
Well, it was that aspect of it was amazing, but we were enchanted. We were absolutely enchanted just by being in America. You know, we arrived at JFK Airport and turned right into Long Island instead of towards the big shiny spiky buildings on Manhattan. But it was a magical time for us. We were, you know, John and Nick were big fans of these old rock and roll memoirs like Diary of a Rock Star. And for them, it was so important to be hitting the stage in America. And we went out to clubs. We spent all night out. And we had an audience who just went immediately crazy for us. And it was just extraordinary. And it was an extraordinary time in music generally.
It really was, because there was something great coming out every other hour.
Yeah.
It felt like, I could go to the store every week and literally find something cool that was coming from over across the sea, and it was incredible. But those, I know. And at that period of time, of course, before you guys broke through to mainstream radio, there were stations like K-Rock and LAR-DRE, at that period of time. There were only a few in the country,
That's right.
And then kids like me who were in college radio who were playing Planet Earth and Girls on Film and Careless Memories and everything.
And you guys were really with a first foothold that we had. And we, MTV played a big part in Duran Duran's early success in America, but it was radios, you guys, college radio and alternative radio stations who really kind of was our first toehold on the side of the mountain.
Let's talk about the most recent album, Future Past. Simon, it's you've worked with some really cool people on this record, working with Giorgio Moroder, who was truly, a pioneer of synths when he was doing things like I Feel Love, and then worked with Blondie, and this guy had done all these amazing things. And you also worked with Graham Coxon from Blur, who's an incredible guitar player. Talk to me about working with those guys.
Giorgio was like working with a master, an old master. We and we kind of, without even talking about it, we had a sort of tacit agreement that whatever Giorgio said was what happened. Now, I remember one very funny moment when I was in the studio doing some backing vocals and harmonies on the song Beautiful Lies. And I came out of the vocal booth, and Giorgio was sitting there shaking his head going, no. Simon, he says, you're singing, it's a minor chord, and you're singing a major over the minor chord. And I said to him, but Giorgio, I'm in Duran Duran. We've made a career out of me singing a major third over a minor chord. And he goes, not on one of my records. and I was about to go, but I thought, okay, whatever you say, Giorgio.
Yeah, that's an amazing story.
He was amazing. I think we need to mention Errol Alkan, who's an incredible producer. He's not the big name that Giorgio is, but he should be, and he will be one day. He comes from the UK dance scene, and he's the guy who really introduced us to Graham Coxon. Although we'd met him before, Errol brought him into the project, and I think Graham's arrival had a huge impact on us. It lifted the quality of the music, the original sound of it. He's an innovative guitarist. He's the first kind of innovative guitarist we worked with since Andy left the band in the early 2000s. And it made a huge difference to the whole writing process. He really upped the game for us.
And he was a fan to begin with, I'm sure. I mean, he probably told you guys that, right?
Well, I hope so.
Yeah. Which is, hey, speaking of people you're fans of, one of the things that when you were first starting out and you did the cover of Fame, which was on the B-side of one of your singles, and I know it was great to induct Roxy Music into the Hall of Fame. We'll talk also about the Bowie covers you've done with Mike Garson and Mike Garson playing on the record, but tell me, what was it for you, Simon, as a kid growing up? What are your earliest memories of the music you loved? What was the thing that really got you, that made you want to do it?
Well, there was no one song. There was a series of bits of music or songs throughout my youth that really grabbed me and took me to a new place. Started off with classical music. I was listening to classical music when I was in the cot as a baby, and because I heard so much of it, I kind of started to, in a babyish way, I actually started to understand music and how it worked. After that, I remember going to the kitchen once and hearing "She Loves You, Yeah, Yeah" by the Beatles. I must have been very young at the time, and thinking, wow, that's music, is it? And then the next thing really would be T-Rex, Ride a White Swan. And then after that, David Bowie. And then after that, punk rock. And then after that, Duran Duran.
Yeah. There was so much going on. I mean, it was an incredible time, I'm sure, for you to be growing up. Yeah. Now, Mike Garson also plays on the record, which is great. And you guys have this long relationship with Mike Garson. Mike and I have become good friends, and I was involved in those Bowie celebrations as well.
Yes.
I loved the version you did of 5 Years, which was just incredible. But you've been a part of more than one of them. Talk to me about getting Mike on the record and your relationship with Mike.
Well, I remember meeting Mike when I went on stage with Smashing Pumpkins in London way, way, way back. I think at the end of the 90s. And we met each other, and my wife Yasmin was like, "That's the sound of Aladdin Sane you were just talking to." I thought, oh my God, it is. It really is. And we've always stayed in contact since then. And Mike he asked us to do the 5 years thing. And around the same time as we asked him if he would would work on a song with us. And the song which we chose was Falling. So we did the 5 years thing, and he took Falling. We said to him, we'd like a little bit of Lady Grinning Soul on this track. And wow, we got so much more than we asked for. It's absolutely beautiful. That track is the last track on Future Past. And it has to be the last track on Future Past for the simple reason that nothing else can follow it.
Yeah, I mean, Mike's playing is amazing. And like you said, what he did when he joined Bowie in '73 with Aladdin Sane, it just took it in a whole different direction. It was incredible what he added to that.
Yeah, absolutely. He's amazing. We've just finished doing another one for him. We've done a version of Let's Dance.
Yes.
Because he is the curator of the David Bowie repertoire, really.
Yes, he is. I mean, he's the guy who played with him the longest, which is amazing. Yeah. And Mike's a lovely guy, really is. And,
he is. A diamond.
Yeah, it's incredible. So I love that you also brought up T-Rex and Ride a White Swan and things like that from that period of time. It was amazing how, there were certain things that in England were bigger there, like T-Rex and Slade and even Roxy. But, but people did love here. And I think it's just great. When you realized how big Duran Duran were getting worldwide by the time of the Rio tour passed, and it was going into Seven and the Ragged Tiger, that must have been an incredible feeling. What was that like for you? Because you were young guys still too. So
Yeah, we were young guys, but we were very focused as well. We were very, very single-minded, and we didn't really step back and sort of look at the picture at that time. We were so deeply committed to the process that we just took it one step at a time. It literally was like climbing a mountain. You don't really look down until you get way up near the top, and it's probably better that you don't look down, because then suddenly you go, whoa, look where we are, guys, look what's happening. So we were pragmatic, and we made it all about the moment and making sure that every step we took, whether that was a live show, whether that was making a record, maybe or doing an in-store promotion, or going to a radio station, that we did the very best job we possibly could at that moment. And it's something I've come to realize about the job, and that is music, like sport, is one of the things that really keeps you in the moment.
It really absolutely does.
Yeah.
And speaking of moments, you guys have had many, obviously, over the years. For you, being a Brit, when you were asked to do View to a Kill and to do an actual James Bond theme, was that a great feeling for the guys? How did you guys feel about that?
It was an achievement. It was a real a notch on the bedpost. Can we say that?
Yes.
Will I get cancelled?
No, you won't get cancelled. Not by me and not by us.
So for us it was a real achievement, because we all grew up watching James Bond films. It was the most important film franchise during the 60s and the 70s by far. It was just different from everything else, and in a class of its own, really, and probably still is. And we had this opportunity to become part of that franchise, and so we grasped it with both hands, regardless of any of the anything else. We just were very focused. The song really wrote itself. I remember we were filming video in studio. I think it was in Elstree or somewhere near London. I can't remember what we were doing, but Nick brought a little keyboard with him, and he started playing these chords, da, 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 and I just started singing, meeting you with a view to a kill. And we looked at each other and we thought, that's it, we started. And that's how we started the song. We started with the first bit, then wrote the verse, then wrote the chorus.
That's amazing. You know, let's jump ahead to the Wedding album, which was just this great moment when everything was at that period of time. I mean, alternative radio, and the songs crossed all over. I mean, and pop as well. But you had Warren, who you had obviously known and toured. You were label mates when there was a Missing Persons. And then you guys came up with this incredible song, "An Ordinary World," which was just like this just amazing track. Talk to me about that period, and when you knew how special that was.
Well, we were working in what was Warren's house at the time. So it was a little terraced house in Battersea, southwest London, and he'd set up a studio in the front room, and I think it was another one of those moments when Nick was playing the keyboard, and he just played these. He kind of lets his hands do the playing sometimes, and not his brain. And I think that's a really clever thing. It's because you end up with something quite original sometimes when you do that. And he was playing these chords, and I just started singing. The and I won't cry for yesterday. There's an ordinary world. And I remember I thought, that's clever. That joins two phrases together, and as though they're one. And it kind of shifted the cadence, if you can understand what that means. And I thought, that's new, that's different, that's something we've never done before. And then the rest of the song got written, and it took ages to come up with the verse melody. And it was actually Warren who came up with that beautiful verse melody that I sing. And then we recorded it, and it took ages to get it mixed. We had this guy called David Richards working in Switzerland, and he I think he took a month to mix the thing, but when we got it back, it was like an extraordinary sound with all these kind of ghostly echoes and things. It was just a beautiful piece of music, and we really knew that it was something special.
Yeah, and it still holds up in a big way. You know, on a side note, I'm sure you know about it, obviously, because they had to license it. But in that Tinder swindler documentary, where the guy's playing "Ordinary World" over and over again in the car, and my daughter said, "Oh, they explain that song an awful lot." I said to my daughter, "You know what? But I still love that song. I've heard it a million times. That song holds up." That guy was a little bit, obviously, he was out of his mind. But was that crazy when you saw that? Because you never know what context your music is going to be used in film, in people's lives. I mean, that's the magic of music of being free. But what did you think about that when you saw that?
There's another one. I would draw your attention to. There's a Matthew Vaughn film called Layer Cake, made in the I think the early 2000s. No, I think made in the 90s actually, and he uses Ordinary World in this incredibly violent scene in a cafe where this guy, he's been beaten up, and in the end, this guy who's beaten up gets this electric samovar of boiling tea and pours it on him. It's so incredibly violent, and all the while you've got this ethereal piece of music in the background, which is Ordinary World, and it's a real contradiction, but in a way, the music's the only thing that kind of gives it any kind of redemption and makes the scene work. And I think I love to see our work used in different contexts in ways that we hadn't really imagined before.
When you look back and you see, I mean, it's incredible. Like recently there was that movie that came out. We're watching the Rio video called Sing Street. It was an Irish film, and they're watching
I love that. Yeah.
Wasn't that a great movie? I mean, it was such a good film. And they want to be really Duran Duran, then they want to be The Cure, but it was just it was a beautiful. That was such an incredible movie, and I love that. But they were. Can you tell some of those memories of? I mean, obviously you had these iconic videos. What was the Sri Lanka experience like? Because, like I said, I saw you right after you got back from that. That was. Tell me about that experience, what it was like, because you guys were doing things nobody else was doing at that time, like shooting in exotic locations, and obviously you were breaking all new ground in these places where probably the people there had never seen anything like it either. So, what was that experience like as young men?
It was, we'd never been to a third world country before. We'd never been to sort of the Indian continent or subcontinent before. It was like going to a different planet for us. Nick turned up in his blue grey leather suit, and it was 120 degrees. We just weren't prepared for it, but it really brought out a different side of the band. Suddenly we were taking, we were known for being dressed up, in shirts and new romantic clothes and jodhpurs and boots and bandoliers and scarves and things. And suddenly we were there in linen shirts with and shorts, sort of half naked and half soaked in the water in the sea. And it brought out a really interesting side of the band. And I think it really worked more than anything. I mean, Hungry Like the Wolf it kind of showed a great side of the band, I think, like a slightly outdoors, durable Duran Duran.
Yeah, I think so. It wasn't just at night like the new romantic thing, which was great, by the way. But, that was cool that you did that. And even the Rio video, too, that iconic scene where you guys are on the boat. It's just like with that fisheye lens of all of you. It's just one of the, it's one of the most important scenes of that period. All those experiences were great. Was it happening at just rapid succession? Because things had to be happening so quickly for you, right?
Everything happened, just one thing after another. We kind of left. We made the Rio video. We made the Rio record in at Air Studios. Great. we literally got off the got out of the studio, went and packed our bags and put in a little flat around the corner, got a taxi, went to an airplane, flew down to Sri Lanka. Nick stayed and helped Colin mix the record. We got out with Sri Lanka. We made 3 videos there: Save a Prayer, Hungry Like the Wolf, and Lonely in Your Nightmare. And then we got on another plane to Australia, and something along the way, Rio must have been released, or something happened. But by the time we got off the plane in Australia, there was hundreds of kids standing at the airport waiting to meet us, and we weren't prepared for that at all. It was just it suddenly you're in this machine that's rolling, and you can only view it through your little part in the middle of it as the center of all this attention. It was interesting.
Yeah. Oh, I can imagine, to say the least. You know, one of the things from the very start, as I said earlier in the beginning, was you guys were always a great live band. I mean, you guys nailed the live thing right from the start, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And that's always been very important to you. Tell me, for you, Simon, and for the rest of the guys, and it was live. It wasn't like a ton of tapes or anything. I mean, you guys were playing. Nick was doing his synth stuff, but it was live, and everybody was just like at the top of their game, and you've always been able to maintain that. Tell me about how many before you guys did those tours. I mean, how often were you rehearsing? Because you knew you wanted to be a great live band.
We sort of, I think we started off rehearsing a lot, you know, before, up to the release of the first album. And then, you know, writing sessions were also rehearsals. We'd be honest, we'd get, you know, we'd book a cinema in Borsall Heath, and get up on stage and write songs that were on Rio. Be writing those things while we're rehearsing for the show for the show of the songs of the first album. We were constantly performing, and when you get into that groove, you don't actually need to spend so much time in rehearsal, because you're kind of bringing one new song in at a time, and it's just part of the process. So everything sort of gets kind of mixed in together.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I spoke to John.
We should talk about the live show, really.
Yeah,
and what that means to the band, because, you know, it was, as well as making a record, putting on a live show was an incredibly important thing for us. We've always sort of been aware of that moment of that spark that happens when you get out in front of an audience with nothing in between you and them, and you play your music to them, and the audience is the other part of the equation, and the audience is what makes a show really great. And one of the things I say to the guys before we ever go on stage is I always say, remember, fellas, let the songs do the work. And by that, I mean, we're really just there to serve the songs. We spend all this time in the studio writing them. If we just if we just go and present them in the proper way, and not worry about ourselves, the performance just falls into place, and everything really happens.
Yeah, it certainly does. Did you enjoy that experience when you guys played on Broadway? That was another show that I saw when you guys.
Yeah, because again, that was something that we'd never done before. It was an exciting experience, because there we were having a residency and playing the whole of Red Carpet Massacre, and we learned a lot about that kind of thing. Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah, I enjoyed that show. It was a great place to see you too, because it was such a different atmosphere of the many different places. For you, and you know, when we were talking about the live show too, I mean, the thing that was really cool is you guys were able to go from clubs to arenas to stadiums, and really you were ready to do it. I mean, as a band, I mean, you literally fell right into being able to command an audience like that, which I think was probably. I mean, would you say that was kind of the vision all along, that you were like, we want to play every night like we're playing for for like 100,000 people? Because I mean, it felt like that even when I saw you in the clubs. You guys were just you were out to do it and to actually slay it. It was great.
Yeah, we've never really kind of put on any less of a show for a smaller audience. In a funny sort of way, a smaller audience makes you're so much closer to everybody. You can see how they are reacting in a personal way. It's in an individual way, which is what's different from playing a big show. And it makes your performance kind of, in a way, a bit finer, a bit more finely honed, I think. And you know, those shows, we've all been to them, those amazing shows in little places where it's like a kettle boiling with the lid on. You know, they can be some of the best shows you ever go to. We've all been to them, so we want to put on those shows ourselves for other people.
That's great. Now we got to talk. We mentioned when you guys did that killer version of 5 Years, and you've done, you know, great Bowie covers over the years. You've done some just really cool stuff. Let's talk about your relationship now. John and I have talked about this once before, but can you remember the first time that you met Bowie, and can you talk to us about that and what that experience was like? And
yeah. He came, we were in a rehearsal room, I think, when I very first met him. We were about to go onto the Glass Spider tour, and he had the wonderful dignity and good manners to come to our studio and introduce himself to us, which I thought was a really, really amazing thing to do. He came down to see us. I was speechless because I was completely and utterly starstruck. But he was charming, and he smoked a lot.
Yeah, that I do know, you know, because I'd worked with him on some things, and he chain smoked, that's for sure. He'd go in and out. Even at his own house when I was there, he would go out on the balcony and chain smoke pretty regularly. But it was so great, and you guys have always done such an incredible tribute to him and in honor of him, even going all the way back to that cover of Fame, as you guys were the first band to really cover that track, which was really cool. I like I said, this new album, it's amazing. When we talk about Future Past, how long did it take to write? Because was a lot of it written before the pandemic, and was it finished during lockdown, or was it?
I'll tell you the story.
Yeah.
So we started the album in November of 2018. And we finished off the year, and we spent all of 2019 making the album. And by the time we got into 2020, we kind of thought, well, we should be finished with this by the beginning of the summer. And then the pandemic hit, and everything changed, and the whole world stopped, and we stopped, and we did our different things. And we did some things which I think affected the record. I know John went off on his musical journey. I did as well. I started a radio show called Whoosh, and I listen. And it's really based on new music, and that was one of the things that I brought when we came back. I had a lot of ideas about new kinds of sounds and things, and I wanted to try them out on our record. And also I brought Chai, the all-girl Japanese punk band, to the table, and I brought Ivorian Doll as well. I wanted to have a rap on Hammerhead, and there's another thing that happened, you know, in that year that was the hiatus. I can only describe it as before the pandemic. It was as though you were driving along at night with headlights on, and all you could see is the little bit of road in front of you that you're driving on, and the trees either side. And then the pandemic happened, and when we came back, it was as though the day had broken, and you could see the road, you could see the surrounding countryside, and you could see where the road was going, and that made it so much easier to complete the album.
That's great. Well, I mean, it came out amazingly, and now you got the deluxe edition out as well, which is really cool.
Yeah.
You know, how do you, Simon, at this point in time, with such an incredible back catalog and continuing to make vital music, how does that, when it comes time to plan out a show on the tour, how does that work for you? Does it get harder every album to decide what songs you're going to do?
Well, obviously you've got more. You've got more repertoire. We work on a kind of principle that we think you can play 1/3 can be new material. 1/3 of your show can be new material. The other 2/3, you've got to have a nice fat slice of hits. But then you've got to have some more esoteric things from your history for the fans. You know, they want to hear some album tracks. That makes it exciting, you know.
Yeah.
So it's a really big, a very interesting and big job for us, choosing the songs for the next tour. And we always choose more. So we don't play the same show every night. We'll throw in different numbers. Of course, you've got some kind of markers that are always there. You know, songs like Rio and Ordinary World and Come Undone, for example, they're probably always going to be in the set somewhere.
Yeah.
But then you can mess around quite a lot with what comes in between those songs.
You absolutely can. I mean, there's so many tracks. And you go deep sometimes in things like, you know, there's great songs like Last Chance on the Stairway. And, I mean, even you know, which is, or even, you know, Friend of Mine. I mean, there's so many over the years that, I mean, so much to pull from. So many great tracks, I got to say, you know. And they hold up. They absolutely hold up in such a great way. Tell me about the tour that's coming up.
Okay, what we've got is it's an essential tour of America. So we're going to be playing major towns in major venues, really, finishing up with 3 nights at the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles. And I am looking forward to it. It's the kind of tour that we always dreamed about doing.
Yeah, I bet it's going to be amazing. I'll see you at the Hollywood Bowl for sure.
Yeah.
There's no way I would miss it. I mean, you know, we've been on this journey for a long time seeing the band, and it's great. It really is. And I got to say, it's cool that you're also doing a radio show. You know, Simon, before we wrap it up, are there some? I mean, I know you mentioned T-Rex and Bowie. We love Roxy Music. You got to induct them. Can you tell me of some essential albums, things that always are things that you hold near and dear, like albums in particular?
Yeah, absolutely. My number one album of all time would be Patti Smith and her album Horses.
The very first.
Lou Reed, Transformer.
Yeah.
David Bowie, Aladdin Sane.
Yeah.
Sly and the Family Stone. That one with him kicking, you know, that with the white cover with him kicking.
Yeah, Fresh.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Rolling Stones, Let It Bleed.
Yeah.
The Doors, L.A. Woman.
Yeah.
Oh God, Sex Pistols, Never Mind the Bollocks. The Clash, London Calling.
Yeah.
Oh God, the one they go on and on and on. Public Enemy. There are so many.
Yeah,
it's wonderful. I love music, you know. I just love music. I remember I used to listen to a new record, get it home, and I would feel the chills going up my back and behind my head, up the back of my neck. Okay. I still get that feeling when I hear something great and something new. It's wonderful. As an artist, if you can hang on to that kind of feeling, it's a special one.
That sounds great. Well, listen, Simon, thank you for taking the time today. It was so great to have you. We'll see you at the Hollywood Bowl. And it was great catching up with you again. Okay?
Yeah, man. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Really, yes. It's good to see you, Simon. Thank you so much. Simon Le Bon, the new album, Future Past, and they'll be playing at the Hollywood Bowl. Can't wait for those shows. This is KLOS New and Approved. I'm Matt Pinfield. Thanks so much for joining us.